Humankind Together We Rule, the new DLC expansion, was just announced, as you can see on screen with this little snippet of the trailer. And with it come a whole load of new features: agents, new units, leverage, a diplomacy currency, embassies, a world congress, 6 new cultures, each with a new diplomatic affinity, and further new content to boot. You could say this is undoubtedly Humankind's first real expansion pack, after those earlier culture packs that we've received, Africa and Latin America. In this video, and while we look at these screenshots of some new units and landscapes that they've teased from the DLC, we're going to discuss the free game update that's going alongside this paid expansion pack. I'll have some more details around the expansion pack and some reflections on it toward the end of the video, because as you can imagine, the free update and the paid pack go together well. However, I do have a separate video already covering the paid expansion, so you can feel free to go and check that out on my channel. First and foremost, there are 3 big changes coming to the free update, so the base game. The first one is about third-party reinforcements, then we have a reworked stealth system, and the third change is improved independent people. All 3 of these systems are crucial both to the base game, particularly, of course, you'll notice around warfare, and obviously diplomacy, because of course all of this relates back to the Together We Rule features, those new cultures, the new diplomatic powers, and all of that kind of thing. So let's jump in and discuss that first one. Third-party reinforcements. Man, these are some significant changes. This one basically allows, if you're unfamiliar, because it is a little bit jargony, what this means is shared battles. So battles of more than 2 players. At the moment in Humankind, you can fight one other player, but if you have an ally, or they do, they're sort of forced to just sit on the sidelines, watch and wait, and then move in and fight their own fight once your one is done, even though you're fighting on the same side. This third-party reinforcement change, again free and to the base game of Humankind, will allow people to, quote, lend control of your armies to an ally for a battle. The way this reads suggests to me that it's not quite third-party live battles, but it is, true to its name, in a way, third-party reinforcements. I take this as I'm not able to actively control my units in your fight. However, as your ally, say, I can reinforce your army. I can lend control of my armies to you. There is, of course, a little bit of trust here. Gee, I hope you play with them well. And it does, of course, raise other questions around how will the AI handle it. I assume the same as all the rest of the units. Could there be a prioritization in there? I doubt it. Auto-resolve, there are all sorts of questions that it brings up. But at a base level, this will be really good and bring much more weight and significance to alliances in particular in Humankind. So alongside the new diplomatic features, the currencies, the cultures, the World Congress, and that really obvious monetization, if you will, of diplomacy through the leverage mechanic, we have some soft reinforcing, hey, that's a good pun, reinforcing elements coming through to help us out. In this case, it's the third-party reinforcements mechanic, which will indirectly add more power to alliances, even those ones with the AI, because the AI's units, your AI ally, will then be pulled into the fight. In fact, you could argue it's most significant in single player, whereas in multiplayer, it could lead to some frictions if it is, of course, completely lending control over to you, dear ally. Next up, the second big change coming to the base game of Humankind is a reworked stealth system. Here we hear that based on a depleting reserve of stealth, rather than the old binary yes or no, either you're stealthed or you're not stealthed system. I would argue, rather than reworked, it's almost a new stealth system, because this is kind of all the system is. Your unit is stealthed or it's not. There isn't, in my understanding, really much else to that system. So is it reworked? Yes, but I would argue it's more significant than that. It's entirely new. What this will do, and of course we're somewhat light on the details, so I'll keep this section relatively brief, but what this will do is enable a more, hopefully, natural or organic feeling to stealth. Maybe it's that a unit can only be stealthed for so long, or that it runs some kind of risk profile, and it runs the risk of not being stealthed the closer it gets. Again, it could be time, it could be geographical proximity, proximity to other units. It's hard to say, but either way, this will make stealth likely feel more natural. Hopefully, they can also accompany this with a little bit more front-facing of the information of how the stealth mechanic actually works. Maybe we'll see more stealth units as well. I think that would benefit this system, as it is perhaps just slightly more advanced than a lot of the base systems, and maybe it needs a bit more front-footing. Thirdly, we have our dear friends, the neutral tribes, the barbarians, if you're a civilization player. Of course, these are the independent people in humankind. Here we hear that they're going to be improved. How, you may ask? Let me tell you, dear viewer. Quote, stronger competition for patronage and more detailed treaties. So it's a double whammy of information here. And while it's only a brief sentence, I think we can unpack it fairly handily. Firstly, the first part, stronger competition for patronage. At the moment, the patronage system, if you're unfamiliar, is highly tokenized. You put either money or influence into a neutral tribe, and that's how you win them over. There are, there are other, reflecting on the gameplay, there are other elements to it as well. It's not quite that clear cut, but in a nutshell, that's kind of how it works, or at least that's the most important thing you'll be considering when you're using it. There's some ideological proximity at play there as well, though it's important to note. And then if we see this system boosted up with stronger competition, hopefully we'll have more levers to pull. So it moves it away from being entirely tokenized to, again, perhaps more natural, like the stealth system, more organic, maybe a better way to put it. The second part here is more detailed treaties, and I mean, this is just hook, line, and sinker, fantastic update, and a great thing to go alongside, of course, the Together We Rule, the actual DLC, the paid functions of that World Congress, blah, 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 blah. Here we likely see some more significant diplomatic dealings, bringing the independent people into perhaps more of the fold. At the moment, they kind of are fairly weak. Some changes to the AI recently have made them, certainly, I've found anyway, a slightly scarier opponent. And you will have noticed in this gameplay and in the gameplay from my previous video on the update that they can really hold their own. They are fairly impressive in a fight. The downside is that their actual civilizations themselves, their cities, are fairly uneventful. They don't grow. They just kind of exist for about an era or two and then disappear into nothingness. So if we can bring them into the game and give them a more significant role, perhaps taking on some of the learnings from Ara History Untold and the things we've found out about how that game is handling things, very similar to perhaps Civilization 4 even, we could see a much better, all-encompassing diplomatic system, bringing in the paid updates, those agents that leverage the embassies, alongside a reformed system where third-party reinforcements are allowed, i.e. you can at least use your allies' armies in a fight, where the stealth system is more upfront and clear, there's an oxymoron, but also that it's more organic. It depletes from a reserve of stealth, if you will, rather than simply being in stealth or not. And then finally, improved independent people, stronger competition for patronage, and more detailed treaties, hopefully making them a much more interesting trade partner and ally to keep around, rather than just a goodie bag of a free city and a few free military stars to farm from their units, which, when they're not holding their own, if they've sent their units away or if they've already been destroyed by someone else, is effectively what I find the neutral tribes often turn into in humankind. And so then that leaves us wondering, when will we see this update and the DLC to come with? Well, we know that the DLC will release in fall 2022, that's autumn, or spring if you live on the bottom 50% of the globe, which is likely to be Q2 of this year. They'll be talking in greater detail about the features of the update in a few weeks. That means it's unlikely to be coming in September. Probably more likely we're going to hear about it in October. And until then, we'll have to stay tuned for more, which is, of course, fantastic advice because we're keen to find out more, but also it's probably reasonably good advice to you out there, folks. So make sure you stay tuned for more right here, Jumbo Pixel on YouTube, where I'll be covering, of course, all of the Humankind updates as they roll through. I'm pretty excited about this one. It's no secret to regular viewers that a World Congress in particular has me very interested. I'll be keen to see how much the DLC costs, what's the price point for the paid expansion, and crucially, when we'll get our hands on it in particular outside of that very broad time frame. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.